Okay, joining me now are Dr. Katie Gold, back for her second time on the podcast, and Dave Combs. Hey guys, thanks for being on the podcast today.
Hi,
Thanks for
Fred.
having me.
Thanks for having us.
Excellent. Okay, so we'll start one at a time here. I'd like to start with a quick introduction so the listener can understand your roles in the wine industry and with Cornell University. And now I have to say, Katie, you were already on episode 72 of the Vineyard Underground podcast to talk about how research influences grape spray program decisions. So I encourage everyone to listen to that episode as well. Katie, remind us what your role is with Cornell University.
Sure thing, Fritz. And I had so much fun that I wanted to come back and bring a friend. So thanks for having me back. So my name is Dr. Katie Gold. I'm an assistant professor of grape pathology at Cornell University, and I'm based at Cornell Agritech, which is the historic New York State agricultural experiment station. My appointments are in research as well as extension. I have a 60-40 split. So we both have a wide-ranging research program as well as a wide-ranging extension program. And my interests are in early grape disease detection as well as management. And one of the things that I love the most about my program is that we try to have like a vertical stack of the applied, the translational, and the very kind of out there 20 years in the future fundamental research. I do a lot of work on that side of the spectrum. I work very closely with NASA. I'm the Pest and Disease Risk Mitigation Lead for NASA ACRES, which is the Domestic Agriculture Research Consortium. Spreading through the middle, we do a lot of work with, like, you name it, sensing modality. We're messing around with it. One of our specializations is in hyperspectral, which sees more wavelengths than our eyes can see. But on the applied side that we're talking about today, we run extensive efficacy trials. We have 10 acres of pathology vineyards. And today I'm super excited to have bullied my bestie, Dave Combs, who runs our trials, into joining us today.
Excellent. So Dave Combs, it's so good to have you in this conversation because when I talked to Katie after the last podcast, she said, we really need to get Dave on here because he's the guy who's boots on the ground. And you've been with Cornell, I think you said almost 30 years now. So why don't you just give us a little of your background and what you've been up to help the New York wine industry?
All right, thank you. So I'm Dave Combs. My official title is Research and Extension Support Specialist. Katie just refers to me as her field manager.
My lieutenant.
Yeah. So as you said, I've been with Cornell for over 30 years. Actually, it was 31 last month. And I've had a little bit of a varied background, but I've always dealt with efficacy and pest control. So I spent some time in entomology as well as integrated pest management. And now I have found my home with Katie in grape pathology. And I've been with the pathology program now for about 14 years, I think. And we have tripled the size of the program in the last 6 years. So it's very up and coming, and we are doing a lot to try and assist the New York growers with finding the best products that we can.
Okay. What questions your team was trying to answer for growers? So can biologicals work alone? Do they mix well? What were you looking at and what was driving these questions?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll start with a bit of a storytelling. So as I mentioned, I took over the program in February 2020, and I inherited a legacy of trials there. I also inherited Dave, very fortunate for that. And I had an interest, right, in biologicals, but ultimately, like, what we noticed was when we were like starting to work with the different companies to test their pipeline products, simply what we were getting, what was coming out of the R&D pipeline were biologicals. Just we were not getting any new conventional products. So that kind of organically, no pun intended, led to an interest in, like, okay, well, so if these are the products we're getting out of the R&D pipeline, like, how do we use them, right? Like, so how do they work? But then ultimately, like, we were really pleasantly surprised by their performance. And Dave will tell you that nobody is more surprised than he is to hear what he has to say about biologicals these days. But they were doing really well. So we're like, okay, let's figure out how to use them. And then when we took that approach, we really broke it down into two strategies, right? We don't recommend using biological straight. For the record, we also don't recommend using conventional straight, right? We recommend using a program that integrates both of them. That's the most sustainable approach. But we wanted to figure out, okay, if that's what we're going to say, how are we going to back it up? So we broke it down into those two approaches. One is timing. So how does the design of a rotational program throughout the season impact program efficacy? And then also tank mixing, right? Like, how does it work to, like, put these two babies in the tank together and see what pops out?
Excellent. So, and Dave, on your end, having been working with spray program trials for, I think you said 14 years in the pathology department already. You probably worked with the former Wayne Wilcox.
Oh, he did.
Yeah, before Katie took on that awesome position. So you've been trying conventional products without biologicals in the mix for a long time. So is it safe to say you're a little skeptical about biological products and unsure? I think I was. I think everyone was. So how did you feel about introducing biologicals into these trials?
I would say skeptical is an understatement because I was around and tested some of the original biologicals back, say, 20 years ago when, we were looking at things like kale and clay and the original BTs for insecticides. And it just has come by leaps and bounds in compared to what they used to be. Their efficacy is comparable to that of conventional. Their ease of use is the same as a conventional. We used to go through literally tens or 20 pounds to put into a tank to get the same efficacy as a conventional. Now it's the exact same amount. So I would say that I have kind of been reborn and converted. It's better.
Born again. Okay.
It's better.
Born again biological.
One of the winter fruit schools, I actually blessed the crowd with some water and was trying to convert them over. But we have seen really good results with some of these programs, and the fact that there's a bunch of different mode of actions out there as well has really pushed these, over the edge, in my opinion, is not just what you can do, but eventually what you're going to have to do in order to survive in this game.
And so tell us about your tank mixing study and using biologicals and conventionals together in the tank. What was your goal there?
Yeah, sure. I'll let Dave address the details, but just at a high level to start, right? That was also ultimately one of our motivations, right? Like if biologicals are the products we're getting out of the R&D pipeline, right? Like the era of just getting a new conventional when one burns out, that's over. It's not coming back. But that said, the products we're getting out of the biological R&D are getting better and better every year, right? Like we're seeing some really cool stuff. We're seeing double-stranded RNAs out there. We're seeing like cool formulations of chitosan. Like there's some really exciting stuff. But to get back to the point, right? Like ultimately, like these products are going to play a role in resistance management, and we have to think about them in a different mindset than we think about traditional conventionals, right? Because they have these diverse modes of action. Just to throw it out there as an example, LifeGuard WG, it's a defense activator. Its mode of action is to work upon the plant, not upon the pathogen. So you might think like, okay, well, if I'm throwing LifeGuard in there, then I'm, it's another product, right? Like, bam, resistant. But you're not, LifeGuard doesn't act upon the pathogen. It acts upon the plant. So you're not actually really rotating away from it. You're not actually giving it another product against the development of that disease. You're putting something in. So it's when you're thinking about biologicals for resistance management, you really want to pay attention to their mode of action. And then as well as kind of pay attention to the things we've discussed, like are the pH needs, right? Like the chemistry needs also, like, are we putting a copper with a living bacteria? Do not do that, etc. But I'll let Dave talk about the details of the study and the results that we've seen.
Yeah, so we took, like I mentioned earlier, we took 3 biofungicides with 3 different modes of action: LifeGuard, which is a living; Howler, which is a organism but non-living; and then Warhammer, which is a chitosan-based product. And we mixed them. We put them out individually alone, and then we mixed each one of them with 2 downy products and 2 powdery products. One was Miravis Prime and one was Gatton, and then against powdery, and then the other 2 were Ranman and Zampro against downy. And so we mixed the 3 biologicals with the 4 conventionals, and then of course we put the 4 conventionals on by themselves. And then we rated it for downy, powdery, and black rot. And essentially what we saw was that our powdery was pretty well controlled regardless of what we used. Our black rot was pretty well controlled regardless of what we used. And then we saw these upticks in downy mildew, generally when there was only a biological used. And then the other place that we saw the uptick was when we mixed Warhammer with a conventional. And as we've been talking about with water chemistry and displacement and all that, so the pH, so we believe that part of this reason is because of the water chemistry was off, that we were not using those materials to their full potential. But what we did see was that there was very little differences in any of those mixes, the tank mixes, whether they were, obviously they were together, but even if the material was applied singly, we didn't see very many differences at all. Basically saying that you can use one or the other, but you're just wasting your money if you use both, because you're not adding any sort of advantage to this. You're not getting any better control, and you're basically just putting on the same style of materials, or same range of efficacy materials against the same pathogen. So long story short is that, at least for right now, after 1 year of results, we're saying not to do it because we don't have all the answers, and B, we're not seeing any advantage to it.